In our way, in an Indigenous way, we always honor those that have journeyed on. And we have ceremonies in the spring and in the fall to remember those that have gone on. And so at this time, we are gathering here, and I hope everyone is in that place of honoring and remembering. So we come here to to let them know that we are still here. We are praying for all those that are coming, and for the, as they say, honoring their lives, because every life should be honored. And that's the way the Creator had planned it. And so this is why we're here today, to honor them from all walks of life, from the youngest to the oldest. We are here because of love. And we want you to know that in our hearts we carry your memories, we carry you. And we will do that, not just on one day of each year. We do it every year. I mean, we do it every day in our hearts. We send off prayers. We talk to you. And so you're not missing. You are in our hearts. And I like to give it this opportunity to have a song, sing for a song that will be sung for you in honor of your life. And so I am very proud that we have we have these songs to honor everyone. And at this time, I would like each and every one of you put your hand over your heart when you hear her sing, because that's where we have been. We feel the murder and missing. We feel those ones. And so we send back love into them so that they feel that love that we have for them today and every day. Oh.
Bonjour, Nokomis Renee. Bonjour, Bijam and Adon. Bonjour, Nokosag, Mashosag. Nokomis magazines way down in Nish was at Masamasag, the Dishkaze, Megan and Shabi Quain down, Niagara and Diana Donjaba. This year's song is a Woman's Warrior song. If you know this song, you can certainly sing along. And then, as Nokomis Renee had said, just to place your hand on your heart. Hey, Yakio, Yakio, hey, Yakio, Yakio, hey, Yakio, hey, Yakio, Yakio, hey, Yakio. Yakio, hey, Yakio, hey, Yakio, Yakio, hey, Yakio, Yakio, hey, Yakio, hey, Yakio, Yakio, hey, Yakio, Yakio, hey, Yakio, hey, Yakio, Yakio, hey, Yakio. Yakio, hey, Yakio. Shimmigrich, Shimmigrich, Shimmigrich.
Thank you, Nokomis. It was beautiful to hear those honoring those honoring beats and an honoring song for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And I too would like to welcome everyone here. My name is Sherry Sayville, and I bring just a little bit of information of why we're doing this today. Now, May 5th is collectively known as National Indigenous Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, and Two-Spirited. And collectively, it's known right across Turtle Island in Canada, as well as North America. And some of you will be, may remember some red dresses hanging up. It's also known as, we're also encouraged to wear red or to hang a red dress outside our door. Here in Halton, we've hung many dresses in our time, in our span. And this year it's a little different as well. But our hearts and our minds are together with the ones that have the sacred souls that have gone missing and have murdered. Now, some of you may know that there was a national inquiry into the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls that went across the country and had well over 2,500 statements and stories from families. And they witnessed the genocide that is placed on our women from colonial practices. And it's not that our women will ever forget, it's that Canada has forgotten what it has done to our women and our girls and Indigenous people. We come here with not only honor in our hearts for the women that have gone missing and murdered, and hopefully will come home, their families will find them. But it's also a way to keep those stories alive and witness that Canada has committed genocide to Indigenous people. And that is one thing that wasn't recognized in the budget this past budget, was to even talk about that word genocide. And we need to not forever forget that word genocide was mentioned in the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls inquiry. We'll also leave you some links if you want to read the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, as well as some books that you may want to learn and read from some of our authors right across the country that have taken the time to learn and to promote that awareness, that we all need to learn about that. Within the missing and murdered inquiry, there was over 231 calls for justice. Please read it. Read the calls for justice. Find where you fit in and do something about it. Write your MP, your MPP, the Prime Minister, the commissioners. There's lots that we can do as people that are just sitting here in our homes. And I just want to just say welcome again. And I'll just turn it over to Jody.
Yano, Nyewa, for joining us today. I'd like to acknowledge all of the wonderful elements and energy that Mother Earth provides for us every day. Thank you so much for all of the women who are joining us here. We're in a room today full of amazing women who have trailblazed and made space in the communities in Halton and created space for others to learn about situations and just I want to say, I want to use the right words because we're not issues, right? These are not problems for Indigenous people. This is a collective relationship that we all have to be a part of in knowing and understanding. And so the guests that we have joining us today are beautiful women that are in Halton with us, Carol Holmes and Bev LaFrancois. Also Cindy Lee and Grandmother Renee, Sherry Sayville and myself. We all are co-founders of Grandmother's Voice, members of Grandmother's Voice. And Grandmother's Voice has really developed over the last year in the mainstream. We're reaching people from, I'm looking at the feed right now from everywhere from Leamington, to Ottawa. And this is really important. This was a time when the pandemic began where the grandmothers said, we have this opportunity to reach many people. And so just before the pandemic began, I guess last fall, actually we were in the pandemic, when we had done our campaign for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, Two Spirited, and we still came together on the land, and we created a campaign, what we'll call Our Women Now. And when we sat and spoke about our responsibilities to the calls for justice, as women, collective women, including the women from Halton, our guest today, you know, we knew that we had to continue this journey, even though we were not in community. And so it's really important that we have this time to acknowledge the time that we spent on the land at Crawford Lake in ceremony together, and really acknowledging that what we wanted to make happen was to create a space to honor the women. And the space that we came up with, or the idea was to create a living monument so that we could continue to go to the space and allow the space to be there for others to join, for the spirits to join, for the communities to gather, and to understand that this is something that we need to address together. And so I'd like to say thank you so much for Bev and Carol for joining us today. You know, we have many stories already with our groups of grandmothers joining. But what I'd like to do first is, if you could introduce yourself, it would be wonderful to hear from you. Carol, if you'd like to start. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes? Okay, I'm Carol Holmes. I'm a grandmother, a climate activist, a feminist, and I'm really, really pleased to be here. And I'm so pleased at the success of Grandmother's Voice. Congratulations of having a place where we can meet, you can meet, and you can have some of those wonderful connections you're trying to make in the community. You've asked me to give me a little bit of my background, and I think I'll start right from the beginning. I grew up, I'm French-Canadian family. I grew up in a big family of 9 kids. I was the eldest. And, you know, I've been thinking of my mother, because Mother's Day is coming up. And I was thinking about what it is that she transferred, if you want, to me. And I got thinking about it. Every time we kids would be fighting, you're giving more to John, you're not giving enough to me. And you know, when there's 9 kids, there's a lot of fights. And she was always saying, you know, God, because she was a very spiritual person, she said, God gives us all gifts and skills and talents. Some may be more, some may be less, but whatever he gives you, you must use to the maximum. And she says, and for those of you who have more, you owe a lot more to give back to society. It was her way of saying, you know, for some people, there's a call to service. Like everybody in this room, in this Zoom, we're all called to service. You just don't know really what made you do it. But I kept on thinking back at that, and that's really kept, for me, a sort of a motivating to move on. I never really became political until I started to understand systemic discrimination. And that came very early on when I had a 10-month-old baby. I had a full-time job. We had just moved to an area, and I couldn't find childcare anywhere. And we didn't have money to pay for a nanny or for the expensive childcare that was around, the little that was there. And I said, this is, you know, I got to do something. This is really bad. We need to have more childcare. And that's when I started to really look at what was the reason why we didn't have childcare. Well, you know what? Children and the care of children was just a women's problem. And if we're going to have them, we better find our own way to take care of them. And it just seemed wrong, and it was wrong. And so I started to really work hard at that. I went back to university to get a master's in child studies just so I could start to address this issue of childcare. And I came out, we started a program and started our own childcare center, and then discovered that very few people could afford it. You couldn't, and at the time I was also working as a volunteer with the Children's Aid Society, and there were lots of high-risk parents who needed help. They needed childcare. So we opened a childcare center that 1/3 of the parents had to be referred by the social services and be given help beyond just taking care of their children. But of course, getting a break from their kids was very important as well. So that sort of started me on this sort of journey of looking at the people that were excluded, that couldn't access the services. And I started to work with the provincial government at the time, putting money into more childcare centers. But again, we were in the Mississauga area at that point. Halton was part of the area for the provincial government. And again, poor people, people of color, Indigenous people, disabled, all sorts of people that didn't fit in that perfect middle class cohort couldn't get access. And so there again, I started working in looking at access to service. And about that time is when I met Bev LaFrancois, who is the founder of WHAM, the Women of Halton Action Movement. And so she's going to talk about that. Exciting time for women. But I just want to finish off with a little bit of the work that I then proceeded to do outside of WHAM. In the whole area of community development, it was so obvious. And when we were at the Children's Aid Society, even though it wasn't public, we were catching on to the problem with the 60s scoop, you know, where this was where Indigenous kids were taken away, given to appropriate families. And so often there were breakdowns in that adoption, and they were coming back at 12, 13, 14 years old. You know, it was so painful. And then the results of the intergenerational abuse and the problems with systemic discrimination around the residential schools. We knew, the people in there knew, but it was not just out in the public. And so it was even more motivating for me to do more to try to address what some of these issues were. And then in 1989, I ended up going into Calgary with my husband, and I thought, oh boy, here we go. Cowboys and oil men, you know, conservative thinking all the time. It's going to be really tough. But then, of course, when you go to these places, that's where you find the really tough women. The women who have been fighting it all along. The women who had full-time jobs while their husbands had lost their jobs in the oil industry, and the boom and busts of the oil industry. And we found wonderful women. And I joined the United Way specifically to address access to service. And it was exactly the same as it was in Ontario. People excluded. And money had been given years and years and years to big organizations like the YWCA, who were building huge buildings in downtown Calgary with indoor swimming pools. And my little lesbian mothers group that I wanted to fund couldn't get any funding. You know, it was just, the system was rigged. I hate using that word because it sounds like Trump, but the system was rigged against poor people, against people of color, against the lesbian moms, against the Indigenous. And it really needed some work. And so I said, I'm going to do anti-racist training. And I had an incredible group of 20 trainers to do anti-racist. I said, you can't use that term. If you use anti-racism, that means you're saying we are racist and you're trying to fight against us. I said, yeah, that's right. No, you better soften that term. That social services are not going to go for this, because we were trying to get the social services to be more accessible, more open. So we called it soft term, multicultural organizational change. But we did anti-racism, let me tell you. But that was the title that we gave. And at that time, the attitude towards Indigenous people was so heartbreaking. It was, I can't, I mean, I know for all of you, you understand, but it was so ingrained. It was so, I could say, you know, there's discrimination against Indigenous people. And they'd say, yeah, we know there should be. Those would be the kind of answers we were getting in the social services. This is not just in the guy on the street. Anyway, so we did quite a bit of work, but it was very hard because people just moved into the token stage. Yes, oh yes, our board is very open. We have one Indigenous person on our board. My heart broke for that one Indigenous person that was constantly being put on boards as the one to show how open they were. So there wasn't that much progress being made, and at that point we were ready for retirement, and we moved to Niagara-on-the-Lake, where we opened a bed and breakfast. And then on our way to the bed and breakfast, we saw this beautiful native center. I couldn't believe it. I went, oh, I never saw anything like that in Calgary. It was a beautiful building. It had a playground. They had they had fabulous fish fries every Friday night. Oh, some of you have been there, eh? Great fish fries. And so my husband and I went a couple times, and then one day they were having a conference on youth and elderly. I thought, oh my God, this is fabulous. So they said, Carol, you should don't come just for the fish fry, which I was going for the fish fry, but you need to come to the conference. So I thought, well, okay, I will. So we get in there, and it was the most moving experience in my entire life, because I had never been anywhere where grandparents were being respected. These elders were being respected. The kids were listening. And it was sort of a bit of like a confessional, and an older man stood up, and he talked about his life and his self-hatred, and he talked about how he was a very bad father, and that he hated himself so much, but he was taking it out on the people around him. And he said, but I've changed. I've understood. I understood what were all those things. And now I am as a terrible father, I am now a really good grandfather. And all his little grandkids were around him. And we all did that sort of dance where you go all around. I was like, oh, so taken. I said, well, what can I do? What can I do? They said, well, we're having another conference, and we know that you have a bed and breakfast, and we've got chiefs coming in from Gananoque and Brantford. So they said, you could put them up. I said, oh, okay. So we had this wonderful weekend at the next conference where the chiefs and very important people stayed at my bed and breakfast. It was quite a wonderful event. But again, they were just sort of surface things. They were just little things. But it was always in my mind, Mom, you telling me, my mother's voice, you need to do more. You've got skills, you've got talent, you've got privilege. And so one of the things that really, I'm almost done. One of the things was hearing about AIDS in Africa and how all the working people were dying, and grandmothers were taking care of kids. And we started a group called Oh Mama. And Oh Mama was a group. It was the Golden Horseshoe. It wasn't just Oakville. We had right through to Niagara-on-the-Lake, Grimsby, Hamilton, everybody, this group. And we said, okay, we're going to do something. And we can fundraise. We can do that. But, the kind of fundraising. We want to change a system. We don't want to just give them a little money, but a feeling that they can take on some power, and they can demand their governments to give them pensions. These grandmas had nothing, and nobody was helping. And we connected with the Stephen Lewis Foundation, who said, my goodness, these grandmothers in Canada are quite activists. Maybe they've got money, and maybe they can send some money. So we started this organization, and it became very, very active, and we're still active in it. And I just want to say all the time, and I'm right at the end, one of the times people kept on saying, why? Well, you're working on all these grandmothers in Africa, and that's really nice. But what about grandmothers in Canada, especially Indigenous grandmothers? Guess what? When their kids can't take care of their children, who do you think is taking care of their grandkids? Well, I knew they weren't sending them to the expensive daycare. I can tell you that. I knew they were taking care, and sometimes they were taking care of several children way past their parenting age, And it's very hard to parent at 70, very tough. And so I said, I was raising it in the Stephen Lewis Foundation and raising it among the grandmother projects, and said, we need to connect Canadian grandmothers with Indigenous grandmothers. So we had this one time when we knew that African grandmothers were coming. And so we arranged at the Oakville City Hall, actually. That's where we met. And that's where I first met Jody. And then I first met the wonderful grandmother Renee. And we had a sort of a get-together where everybody spoke. And grandmother Renee, I want to tell you, you have made the most profound speech. It was just a little speech among the Oakville grandmas, nice privileged white middle class grandmas, yourself, and the African grandmother. And we huddled, the three of us, Jody listening to every word on the outside. And this is what you said, grandmother Renee. You said, it's happening. It's happening. I was thinking, what are you talking about? You said, it's happening. It's happening. The grandmothers are coming from underground. The grandmothers are surfacing, and they're surfacing all over the world. And they're surfacing because they're coming to heal their families, their communities, and the world. Absolutely fabulous. I've re-quoted you many times, Grandmother Renee, because it really speaks to us and our duty, our call to duty, our call to service. And so I'm just going to end there. And later on, if I haven't taken everybody's time, I'm going to talk about GASP.
Bev, I think this slides to you, you wonderful woman. We have a little bit of feedback happening in your, let's just see where that's coming from. But so Carol mentioned you started WHAM. Tell us about yourself. Thank you, Carol, for all of those wonderful words.
Well, I always admire how you honor the places where you were born and the land and that. So I'm going to start by saying that I was born in Melita, Manitoba, where I was raised in a farming community. And I am the mother of 3 sons and 1 daughter. I have 5 grandsons. And my grandmother, who lived till she was 102, and my mother played such an important part in my life. And I think they gave me what strength I've had to do the things that I've wanted to do. So I've been fortunate to spend some time with Sherry and Jody, Grandmother Renee, and Grandmother Gail. And I continue to be educated by you, by Grandmother's Voice Weekly. And I'm reminded by you to care for Mother Earth and all living creatures, to be grateful, and to treat Mother Earth with tenderness. Your voice must be heard. It is time. It's time for change. And I'm just so glad that we spent time together. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to the sacred space that you're making. But you wanted to know about WHAM. So, well, first of all, you wanted me to tell a story about when my family has moved between Manitoba, BC, Toronto, Ontario, BC, England, that has finally settled in Oakville in 1980. Anyway, at one point, we moved to Port Coquitlam from our first move from Winnipeg, and we got a house. There was no childcare. I had been a teacher before that. I could not work. I had a 1-month-old and an 18-month-old. The day my 1-month-old was born was the day we were told we would be moved by the company. 1 month later, we were living in a house that we could not afford, but there was no childcare. There was nowhere. They wouldn't take us in apartments because we had children, young children. They didn't really want us. And it was really hard to be moving around. But something happened. I got asked if I would. My neighbor had 2 Indigenous young girls living with her, and they weren't getting along. So I got a phone call just saying, could they come and live with you? And I thought, oh, well, could one of them, because they're not getting it. And I always loved kids. I was a teacher. I said, sure. Not knowing anything about anything except that there was somebody that needed a home. Pretty soon, Eliza and I got along very well. And Wilma, we were asked if Wilma could join and live with us because she wasn't getting along where she was living. So we became a bit of a team. Now, these were 14 and 15-year-old girls. They lived with us for 2 years. They were from Kit Kat. and Bella Bella. And the question was never asked, why were they needing places to live so they could go to school? Well, school had been canceled in their villages, in their towns. This was part of the whole thing about breaking up the families. But those weren't the questions. We never asked the questions, and I just knew that they were going to live with us, and I liked having them there. And we became the meeting place for all the Indigenous youth. All their friends could meet in our place. We made a place for them. Eliza turned 16. We taught her how to drive. She was the first one in the family to have a driver's license. And then in life, and lots of things happened that we learned to deal with together. But then we got transferred to Toronto, and back and forth. And so Eliza and Wilma had to find another place to live. But it was a time in my life where I didn't ask those questions about why. And I have certainly asked them for years after that. That was an important time in my life when I think back about it in my relationship. But then got transferred to Ontario, and I had been part of a group in Port Coquitlam of women who set up shelters for battered women. We set up a women's center. Women needed to talk together. We called it consciousness raising. And we learned about our lives. It was women sitting together, and a woman named Rosemary Brown, a wonderful woman, came and talked to some of us about battered women. And that story just changed my life. I thought how protected my life had been back in Melita on the prairies. And learning about this violence and with other women, what we did was within a year, we set up what's called a women's center. I don't know if you can see this. It's called Story of a Women's Center. We had a lot of success, and within a year, we started a shelter for battered women. And we continued to do the work. And I was very involved in every way. My children didn't play house. They played women's center, all the women, because that's what they heard about all the time. They heard about women working and being together. And it was wonderful that I had the fortunate to meet these women. When I got transferred to Ontario, I thought, oh, well, I got to carry on this work because it had me. And I was fortunate enough to gather together a group of women who cared about other women, who cared about children and cared about the world. Carol was one of those women. And from there, I have had a great privilege of working with women since then. We set up a women's center. We set up a women's place. We're involved in sending that. We set up SAVIS, SAVIS, which was called the Halt Rape Crisis Center. These were all women that got together because they cared. But I have to tell you what the first issue was that brought us together. Okay, this was a time when we learned about what was, excuse me, can you tell I'm a little bit nervous? I don't know why I've been talking all my life. Anyway, where we learned about the Indian Act. A wonderful woman married 2 acts early talked to us, and she was leading what was a struggle that Indigenous women and girls were going through. And it was dealing with the Indian Act. The Indian Act of 1869, the government of Canada tried to settle the Indian problem once and for all by forcing Indians to disappear into the Canadian society. The Indian Act was to be the instrument used by the governing government to destroy the Indian people by cutting off the woman. The woman embodies the culture and the language of any nation, and once she is gone, the nation has no chance to survive. This was upsetting. It was 12(1)(b) in the Indian Act. Who was affected by that? A woman who married a non-Indian. That's what it says here. She lost her status. She lost her status outside of her band or an Indian outside of Canada. She could not marry someone that wasn't her band. Her children also lost all their rights. Indian men were not affected. They could marry anyone they chose without any penalty. In fact, when an Indian man married a non-Indian woman, she got all the rights of a registered Indian in the Indian Act. It was terrible. There was the loss of nationality, the loss of rights to reside where she was born, the loss of close ties to the family, the loss of culture and religion, the loss of her right to family property and inheritance, the loss of her voting rights, of her health services, her educational rights, the loss of her right to be buried on Indian land. Mary 2X early told us all these things, and I was involved with the National Action Committee on the Status of Women as well. But this became WHAM's first issue, and this is the issue that attracted the women that came together at WHAM. The inequality that was just so terrible at that time. So we worked on that, and it was only just a few years ago that it was completely wiped out. Like this didn't, in 1985, we got our equality clause, where women were to have the same equality with men. The Native women never got that for years and years. Anyway, we have worked on this all along, and it was in 1980 when we started. WHAM started in 1980. In 1981, we joined 1,400 women in Ottawa because we were rewriting the Canadian Constitution on the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And you know something? We weren't being included. We wanted a clause that said that women had the right to every form of life and equality that men did. Well, we were told, don't worry about it. You know, we'll look after you. But the men, we said no. 1,400 women showed up within weeks. And we put on a conference and we demanded, and we got the equality clause in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And when women work together, we can do anything. But there were lots of rights and freedoms that Indigenous women still did not have. So WHAM went on then for years to work on other issues. Actually, 40 years that we've worked to try and change inequality for women. And we were called ourselves feminists. 40 years, we were not popular. They didn't like us. But we had each other. The women depended on each other. And we're still fighting for those rights. And I think that this is the time. This is the time. It seems like it's taken a pandemic for us all to get together and be able to work together. And what you're teaching us, me, I'll speak for myself, is of such value. It's something that is a way that we all have to be together. And WHAM will never stop lobbying on the issue of violence against women. It is, well, it's throughout the world. It exists everywhere. And so things we've done that you may know about is we started the Take Back the Night walks, where it's a right for women to walk at night without feeling afraid. We started our Sisters in Spirit vigils, where we remembered all the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in Two-Spirit. And personally, I've worked in a rape crisis center for years, and I know the stories. I know the brutality that goes towards women. But Mother's Voice will provide us with a living monument to the memory of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in Two-Spirit. It will be a place to be. And it has taken a pandemic for a lot of people to open their eyes and look at what is it that people do in this world. And I am just so honored to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you both, you ladies. It's come full circle. When your grandparents came to this land a long time ago, we took care of you, the women. because the women were treated in such a way that it hurt our men. It hurt them to see how the women were being treated. And so we're doing that full turn. You're coming back and you're supporting us. And when we lost our rights, we still held that up as grandmothers. We still believed we had that right. And this is what I was grooming for, to be a grandma. It wasn't to be a mother, it was to be a grandma. Because grandmas have more power. That's why I'm in it, because of my grandma told me a powerful story about her daughter going off to find, just like you described, work, education. And my auntie, my dad's sister, the oldest of her family, she never came home. She used to write all the time and tell grandma all the things that she was doing. And she said she had to move. And I was thinking, and after that, my grandma never heard from her. And my grandma would cry on a regular basis because she didn't know where she was, didn't hear anything from her. And so she kind of put that in me to find her. And so I became involved with when this came about. I heard of the murder and missing, and I know the history, and I know she is one of them, murdered and missing, because I do genealogy and I know where to do research, and I couldn't find her any place. I couldn't find her in all the stats. It was just like she disappeared. And so it's been personal for me. And at this time, I'd like to acknowledge a good friend of mine, Eileen Joseph. She just passed away last week. She was very strong in this group, because her own daughter was murdered, and so she has now joined those women because she has marched, and she has brought the awareness. And both her and Norma General, they have had that experience, just like other grandmothers have had this experience in our lives. And so we're glad we're coming together. And it was nice to meet with other grandmothers, because this is what we have been doing ceremonies for a long time. For all the grandmothers do is just to brush themselves off again and stand back up. And because this is who was, we weren't called activists. We were just called concerned grandmothers. And so I think when the people heard the grandmothers are rising, they put another word to us. But we have just been women that have put that caring part of us to care for all of those. It was because we knew that every child was important to us. Didn't matter what color they were, what nationality they were. They were our children, and we had to provide a good future for them. And so when I went to the UN a while back, it was all the grassroots grandmothers. We gathered, we went to the UN. We did ceremony outside the UN, and we said, and they were asked, people gathered and said, what is this all about? I said, the grandmothers come. We have come to help them. Those that are making those decisions, we come to heal their hearts so that their minds can work. Well, we did ceremonies for the men. We did ceremonies for all the other grandmothers, because there was grandmothers from it was an international, the grassroots Indigenous women that have struggled to bring that, bring our grandmothers together. It was so nice when we gathered that evening. We came in our regalia, every one of us from every different nationality. We came and we shared that love for everyone. And so I'm so happy that we're continuing this ceremony, and it's going to grow stronger because of we're coming together as a family, and we're coming together to let those ones that have gone on. It's not only women, it's the children that have gone, that were to be women, that were to be fathers, all those that have been. And so we come together, and we're going, as they say, we are the fire of the future. And so it is at this time that it was so great to meet with the women across the waters again. The mamas, I'm so happy to hear that the grandmothers have joined arms. And in our way, we have a symbol of the Confederacy. And that was showed where we wrapped our hands around each other. And this is what we're doing today, is we're holding each other up because of those ones that have gone. And we're here for those ones that have journeyed on. And so we come together. We come together for a greater purpose, and that is for those ones that are on the street, for those that are looking for homes, for those that are having difficult times in understanding of life, because those we have to put back in their spirit, put back that spirit of someone cares. And I hope today when they hear this, when they see this, that they know we care, all of us, no matter what color we are. All us grandmas, we care about you. And we want you to know you're not out there alone. So look for a grandma. Even if you have lost your grandma, you can adopt a grandma. You can adopt a grandma, because what does grandma have? She has a lot of grandchildren. So this is why we are here today. No matter where you travel, what city you are in, look for a healthy grandma, and she will help you to stand up and become that goal of being a grandma. That's what we are looking forward to. So I want to say thank you to all the women that are out there, all the men, all those that are coming, because when we come together, we bring that fire up of that that fire of love. And that's the strongest medicine. That's what my dad told me. That's the strongest medicine that comes between the two worlds. And so those that have traveled on have felt our love. And those, they give back that love to support us in carrying on the work that we do. And so I want to thank all those that are here today, and that all that are listening. And we send off our love to all those ones that have made their journey without being recognized. And so at this time, we send lots of love to everyone. And so we say, thank you. Thank you very much for being here today to join us, and to tell our aunties, tell our sisters, tell our mothers, tell all those that have gone, that we still care. Oh, thank you.
Thanks so much, Grandmother Renee. That was such a wonderful closing and an honor to our women who have also paved the road in Halton, for all the wonderful work that they've done, and to support women who didn't lack a voice, but needed their voices elevated. And so I'm just honored to be in this community, in this virtual forum with such powerful women. And thank you all for being here. And we can hardly wait to show you our magical and honorable space that we're here to talk about today. I want to also welcome Brenna. Brenna Bartley has been such a wonderful partner in this learning with us as we go down this road of truth and reconciliation, raising awareness for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, using the conservation area as an area for learning, on land-based learning, and for a lot of our students to go to the site at Crawford Lake, to know that there is that space that has been preserved for history, and also for us to learn from there. And we've asked Brenna to be part of our discussion because Brenna is such a huge supporter in everything that we do. And when we asked Conservation Halton if they would be part of our red ribbon, red tie event last year that we had for the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in October, she said, absolutely, let's do it. And so we end up having ceremony with some of our partners in the town of Oakville at the museum. And we end up dusting off the red dresses and having a ceremony for those red dresses that have been in storage. And what ended up happening was we end up taking those red dresses and then some of our partners end up taking them back to their place of work and putting them in the window. But we also want to make sure that we wanted people to be actively involved in what they were doing. And so the red tie project came about, that we will take some red ties and tie them, have a ceremony first, of course, and then have the red ties and tie them around the trees at Crawford Lake. And so I just want to, we asked you here, Brenna, because you're the person who knew how the community really were touched by that, and we had that display, or this display up for almost 6 weeks. And so by the time that we started, of course, it was just us that had wrapped a red tie around a tree. And by the end, that when we took it down and had ceremony again, there was hundreds. And so I just really want you to just talk a little bit more about that, Brenna, about how Crawford Lake has always been a supporter, and then of course with the missing and murdered and the red ties. And welcome, Brenna. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me and for that lovely introduction, Sherry. Is my mic okay? Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. And it's just an absolute privilege to be here. I can't believe I'm on screen with all of you. Thank you so much. And if I can just turn that around, the partnership has been just a pleasure. And it is what has really brought Crawford Lake back to life over the years. I know we've spoken about that privately, but it is just breathed life into the site. And so when Sherry and Jody brought the idea of the red tie project to Crawford Lake, we just couldn't wait to move out of the way so that important conversation could happen on the space here. And we're just so lucky that it happened here, and that the people who are coming through the park had the opportunity to learn from grandmother's voice through the video that was produced at the first ceremony, and then through the words that you put in place on signage in the park, and then being able to watch people come and take their red tie to the white pine trees and tie them as a family and have those important conversations as a family. And you could watch them take the red tie, very solemnly walk over to the white pine trees, take their moment, tie the tie, talk to their kids, and take a moment of silence. And it was so powerful, particularly during a pandemic when people had a lot on their plates. I think for them to take a moment outside of their own, like set that aside and realize this bigger conversation that has been going on that should have been going on for so long. And people just wanted so desperately to have a way to engage with it and to at least start to honor that conversation. So it was so meaningful. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity for those conversations to start here. It was very, very powerful.
Thank you. And, we know how powerful it was being out there twice to do ceremony at the beginning and ceremony at the end. And at the end of when we did go and take down some of the ties, there was a beautiful snowstorm. And it was absolutely gorgeous. And then when we first did it, there was also snow as well. And so it just really resonated with me. But I also want to just tell one more story about the partnership that we have with all of our community organizations. And there was same with the Halton Hills Library, end up having a dress in the display. And a lot of the people were saying that mums would go out and get a book and then come back where that bench was to read a story. And it's almost like they were reading the story to the lost sisters and the lost souls. And so it was very, very impactful. And I know that I'm always touched when I go back and look at that video. I'm always just so touched. Thanks again, Brenna, for being here. And we love your space, and it's a special place in our hearts out at Crawford Lake as well. So again, thank you so much, and turn it over to you, Jody.
Thank you, Sherry. Brenna, before I drop you out of the room like Ellen's show, I can't help. I try to be really reserved in these conversations, but I'm just so happy where we are today. And My mother tells me all the time, because I say, you know, am I too excited or too excited? And she said, you've been like that since you were little. Don't ever try to control your emotions. And I'm just really grateful to have met all of you, and to be in this space, because I remember, and I say this a lot, I remember every moment that I met every single one of you. And maybe that's my gift. But Brenna, you know, if it weren't for you who forwarded our partner, Jamie Riem from Country Heritage Park, we wouldn't be in the space we're in now. And before we started, when we were talking about the red ties and what we can do and everything to really engage community and engage people in the stories and what really needs to be talked about, you know, we would have never had this space if we didn't have you. And so I just wanted to really acknowledge how much we love you and how amazing it is, and how moving forward is going to be so exciting, and there's so much to do. And so I have people in the back room that are waiting to come on. Oh, there's my mom saying, never control your emotions. Thanks, Mom. I love you. We have a really beautiful young woman who was a part of our Woman Now, I want to say celebration and honoring of our missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls last year. And so, Brenna, thank you so much for being with us. We love you. We'll see you soon. I'd like to introduce Rochelle Ritchie. And hey, Rochelle, I was introduced to Rochelle through a story. And we reached out and we talked, I think, for the first time for, I don't know, probably a long time. And you shared your story about your friend, Maisie Ojic, and just your passion for wanting to share her voice and your voice for her. And then to know that what you and I talked about, creating this space and creating everything that we wanted to, and then it's now and it's come to fruition. I was called to just reach out again to you and just tell you that it's happening. And we just are honored that you came with us to show up today and share a bit about how you're feeling about where we are today, and share your words.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jody. First, I'd like to introduce myself, so in my language, the best that I can anyway. I'm slowly learning along the way. So, Ani Bojo, Rochelle Ritchie ni Dishakaz, Saging Ojibwe Nation Dovinjaba, Anishinaabe Kwenindao. So, what I just said was, hi everybody, my name is Rochelle Ritchie. I'm from Saging Ojibwe Nation. I'm learning how to say my home community, my home territory in the language. I haven't perfected it. I know it will never be perfected, but so the reason why I say Saging Ojibwe Nation, I would say Saging First Nation, but we share a big span of our traditional territory with our sister community, Neashingming. So I always try to acknowledge them as well, as they're a part of me as well. And as I said, I'm Anishinaabe, specifically Ojibwe and Potawatomi. So first, I would like to say Chimigwech to Jody for reaching out to me back in the fall time. You know, as much as she says it's an honor to know me and to speak with me and, you know, share what I feel is on my heart, you know, it's just much as appreciated and reciprocated. I was sharing with her back when we first started talking about my friend Maisie Ojic and how I've got to be where I am today. So it wasn't always easy for me to talk about her and what happened. You know, we know this is something that's been going on for years, and it hits a lot harder a lot harder and a lot differently when it's somebody that's close to you. So never in my life, my young life at the time, I'm still pretty young, I'm 27 years old. But at the time when my friend went missing, I was 14. No, I was 14. And never did I think my friend was going to go missing without a trace. And at that time, it just seemed so surreal. And I can only imagine how my friend's family was feeling. There was Same with her home community of Kanagazibi. And her, like I said, the whole, I guess, area too, like not just our reserves, but we went to school together in public school, and she was in high school at our high school back home there for a little while. So I know everybody was feeling it. And, just going off of that, I was sharing with Jody before, and even in my video that I shared at that time, Our Woman Now, I shared how she was as a person, because I always feel that's important, especially for non-Indigenous people that are either allies or trying to understand just a little bit more of where we're coming from. And I think the easiest way to put it, and the most logical sense that comes to it, like common sense, is that they're people, they're women, just like any other person. It doesn't matter what race you come from. But specifically our women, it's never a time to, say it's just our women, it's only our women that's important. We're trying to bring light to it, because I always tell, my non-Native friends, what would happen if that happened to me? Say if I went missing and nobody could find me, and the way that my friend's investigation started, it didn't get handled the way that anybody would think it would get handled. She wasn't declared missing right away. The police didn't believe her mother, and they kind of just said she was a runaway. Now, that's the last thing I would imagine a mother wants to hear, because of course, if you know your child, and I believe every mother, regardless of your relationship with them, you have that connection with them that nobody else does. So at that time, that was hard to know that, she didn't have a missing report done immediately, when it probably could have saved their life. And when I say their life, it's because her friend Shannon went missing with her as well. So it was both of them. But just going back to Maisie, she, every one of our women, they're sacred, they're precious to us, they're powerful in every single way. But when you know a person and you know how they are, it's different. So Maisie, she was full of life. Like, she was energetic. She made everybody feel special and was always there for them. And it's unfortunate, because she had a whole life ahead of her. And even just thinking as a friend, everything that we wanted to do, everything we wanted to do together, and even our friends back home, our group of friends, and like I was saying, our non-Native friends that that she touched. I'm just gonna grab a Kleenex 1 second. And as Jody was saying, you never hide your emotions, because these aren't fake tears. And it's been hard watching her family go through this pain. I'm a friend. I'm not just going to say I'm just a friend. We call each other sisters, but it hits harder when it's a family. When your child, I can't imagine how that feels when your child goes missing. And I think, when we talk about our women going missing without a trace, and there's just cold investigations, I always try to tell people, like, don't think of it as a statistic. Think of it as if it was your sister, if it was your daughter, your friend, your colleague, or somebody that in your life. Individualize it. Actually think as a human being, because I think often it's just the world that we live in now, unfortunately. Everything has to be so, what's the word? So technical all the time. If I'm saying that correctly, and when I say technical, people that do, research on missing and murdered Indigenous women, they just think, well, why is that happening? Like, have you guys looked at yourselves and, thought about what your people may be doing wrong? And, and the reason why I say that is I have come across ignorant people that have said such things. And, I've had to bring it back to, no, it comes from a lot of things. It comes from colonization, specifically assimilation. And, if we want to go back, we could, and we could talk about that all day and how it all interconnects. But the side of it, that I like to touch on is not just the negative parts of it. I know there's a lot of people, especially non-native people and non-indigenous people, trying to do their best and just being there, not just understanding and trying to say, what can I do to help, or how can we try to fix this? It's them trying to understand. And I think that's where people need to be first before they say, hey, like, what can I do? It's first, I need you to understand first as a human being, and then also understand of where our people come from in this country. Because unfortunately, we haven't always had the platform to, say, like, such as this, talk about what it means to be an Indigenous woman, and not just talk about all the negative things and all the statistics that people learn, because unfortunately with the government, they only share the negative parts of our people. They only share the negative things that come from for instance, addictions, drug abuse, but they never talk about why there's such a high rate of that, or suicide in our young people. They don't talk about that. There's no accountability. And when I say technical, going back to the technical part, people want stuff right away. They want to know different things right away. They want to have a grasp on things. And, we're so disconnected from ourselves a lot of the times. And, as a young Indigenous woman, Anishinaabe, I find it a blessing, a huge blessing that I was born into the family I'm in, the community that I was raised in. Everybody that surrounds me, it doesn't matter if you're Indigenous or not. Everybody that's been across my path, they've done things for me that they have no idea they've done, whether it's good or bad, broken relationships, strong relationships. And, when we talk about the connection with ourselves and, ultimately the land, going back to colonization again, because everything interconnects, going back to, how I was talking about the government and not taking ownership, not taking accountability. It's always, why are you guys like this? And when it comes to the technical part, people want answers really fast. And I think that's when we talk about missing and murdered Indigenous women and we have these awareness days, I think, we need to focus more on, coming back to ourselves and who we are as human beings. And, I try to be careful in what I say, but this is what I believe in, regardless if you don't have a belief or not, everybody is spiritual in their own way. It doesn't matter if it's a culture or a religion. It could just be a belief, in yourself that you're a human being and that you have these instincts, you have these gifts to share with other humans. And just because of the world we live in, we're always fast paced, and even in cities and urban areas, there's not much land to just even put your feet on and know that you're part of something that's a lot bigger than the buildings that are around, than your job, and when I say we're so disconnected, I find even with myself, I'll say for myself, I can't speak for anybody else, but when I'm feeling disconnected and I'm feeling overwhelmed with my own life and my own grief, because this missing Maisie is an ongoing thing. It's never going to go away. I think with any grief, you just learn to live with it, and you get stronger every day. It's not that you get over it. You never ever get over grief. And the thing with grief, the powerful thing about grief is it's just love that never dies for somebody. And that goes for all our women, and our two-spirited individuals that have gone missing, and like I said, just going back to what I was saying before, as much as Jody says, it's been an honor and a privilege to speak to certain people and to speak to me and for me to share part of myself. It's been, just as much the same to have this space, because like I said, I have never always been this strong to talk about Maisie. And I was so angry before, like I didn't know how to process my thoughts in a good way. But that was all a part of the journey of figuring out who I am as an Anishinaabe Kwe, And that's still going on for me, you know, that healing journey, that learning journey for myself. You know, I don't know everything and about life, and I don't think anybody does. I know we're not supposed to, and there's always teachings and everything. You know, I want to share a little bit about what Jody was sharing with me, and I apologize if you guys talked about this already, but she shared with me, you know, kind of like a recap and how everything became full circle with the living monument that was gifted, you know, the space that was gifted to grandmother's voice. And that just, you know, that just did something to me. It wasn't that I internalized it and, you know, I thought I was so proud of myself because I was a part of that. It was, you know what, I was actually able to do something for Maisie in a space that has never really recognized Indigenous women. Even though there's so many people in the Halton area, the Toronto region, you know, our Indigenous women and people in general, you know, they don't really have that space given, like actually given to them, gifted to them. You know, it's usually we have to fight tooth and nail. Joey was saying that too, you know, brought that up. Like, why do I gotta go to these certain tables and, you know, try to get this figured out? And when she said that, you know, it reminded me too, because everybody needs reminders, and everything that I've done up until now in my life has always been with my heart, you know, with the passion that I have for advocating, you know, advocating for our young people, for our women and just our people in general, because I know who we are, because I am one of those people. You know, I'm not, you know, I'm not disrespecting or, you know, saying anything about, you know, these statistics, because I hate them, you know, about, you know, addictions and the drug rate and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, you know, you can go on all day and talk about that, but when are you going to start talking about my people in the best way that you can? Because we're more than that. You know, I'm a living example of, you know, how our people have come to be, have overcome all this trauma, you know, and this devastation that has happened to our people. We never let that down, you know, we never let that get to us. You know, I had parents that broke cycles that, you know, I see more than ever now, because I'm growing into my own person. You know, I'm a young adult now, and I'm starting to see things a lot more clear. You know, when I think about my childhood, it wasn't sad at all. I was always happy, you know, I was always fed, I was always clothed. And my parents always did everything that they could, you know, to make me and my brother happy and make sure that we were cared for. And that goes for my community too. You know, they always supported me in every step that I have in my life so far. I can honestly say that, and my friends and my family. And one thing, you know, that people tend to forget, you know, our people are so connected. You know, there's so many of us across Turtle Island, even just in Canada and Ontario, that, you know, it doesn't matter if you've never met another Indigenous person. Once you see that person, there's a comfort, there's a love there that happens immediately. You just see them and you give each other the nod or the smirk, you know, and you just know that they get it. And that's one thing I like to acknowledge, is because we have so much love, and I think it's everything that has come to be now is just a testament to that, because, you know, our culture hasn't died. You know, even though our language is not as a lot of people aren't as fluent to their language, their native language, it's coming back. You know, our young people are becoming stronger, even though they still struggle. They're becoming a lot stronger, and they're knowing who they are, you know. And just going back, you know, residential schools, for example, you know, yeah, even all that trauma and all that abuse happened, you know, there were several people that were able to break that and to be where we are. And that comes to our women too, you know. Like I said, everything comes full circle, and, you know, to be in this day and age, to be an Indigenous woman, to be as strong as I am and who I am, and be grounded as much as I am, it's a blessing. I think about that often, and, you know, and like I said, I'm not who I am today because I just grew up like this. Everybody in my life has done something for me, And people that I have never even met have done stuff for me. You know, I had examples in my life, you know, family members, community members. And then I also had mentors, you know, several mentors and elders. And then there's people like the women that are on here and that are part of Grandmother's Voice that have touched me without even me knowing you or even speaking to you in person to date, because I know where your heart is at. I know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And it's a feeling that you have, you know, an energy thing. And anytime anybody acknowledges, you know, that they don't understand everything about, you know, missing and murdered Indigenous women, even just acknowledging that you're there as an ally, as a friend, that goes a long way. And it goes a long way to just even acknowledge, you know, our sisters that have gone on and our two-spirited community members, friends, and family, because all of them, you know, they were a daughter of somebody. They were a sister, a granddaughter, you know, a friend, a niece. And, you know, like I said, once you think about it like that, that's when you really, you know, come back to yourself thinking, how insane would that be if your daughter went missing and you had no idea for years where they were? You know, it's something that would break somebody's heart with just even thinking about it. But that's a reality for many of our families. And that's what we have to deal with. But that also speaks volumes to how strong we are, because I feel like that would kill a mother, you know. It would slowly eat at you, and I imagine it does every single day. But to find that strength from your friends and your community members and your family, that's a testament to just how close we are as people again. And you know, maybe the last part I'll touch on is, you know, talking about just how resilient we are. Like I was saying just a few minutes ago, look at me, you know, I don't say it like, look at me, look what I'm doing kind of thing. It's more so, look at me, I'm healthy. Like I'm healthy and I'm strong in who I am. I know who I am. Nobody is ever going to tell me that I'm less than them. Nobody's ever going to make me feel like they're better than me and make me question my identity and who I am, not just through my bloodlines, but spiritually, you know. And I feel things on a higher level, and I know a lot of our people are gifted that way as well. You know, they have different gifts of, you know, being able to have dreams, you know, being able to feel, you know, the ones that have passed on in the spirit world, that you can feel them around you, you know, different things like that. And, you know, it was crazy. I'm going to share this. Before I came on here, I was sitting here waiting to be put in here, and I was working this morning, so I wasn't really feeling focused. So, and I didn't have time to smudge, unfortunately, but I grabbed my tobacco tie that I have. So I was hanging on to it for a little while, you know, thinking and praying to, you know, Gijamdo, asking, you know, please help me, you know, say what I need to say. Because I don't like to read off of, you know, a script or anything. I just say what I need to say and what comes in my heart. And I also have my eagle feather that was gifted to me a couple of years ago now. And anyway, I was just sitting here and really starting to pray to myself, like, okay, what am I going to say? How am I going to make an impact in a few minutes? And as I was sitting here, you know, I felt like a warmth come over me. And it was like I could feel my friend, you know, close by, like maybe not as close as sitting beside me, but she was somewhere, like I could feel her. And, you know, one thing she always said to me when we were younger, you know, because I had just as much as, you know, a young person does, a young teenager, you know, they have self-esteem problems because, you know, social media and, you know, you're trying to figure yourself out and who you are. And she helped me, you know, come out of my shell. Like some of my friends and my family, you know, well, my family knows I've always been crazy, like a lot of energy. But when it came to my friends and my peers, you know, I wasn't always as energetic as I am. I wasn't always who I was until I met Maisie. You know, she was full of life. She just didn't care about anything what anybody said. She was who she was. And, you know, she always told me, you know, don't ever be scared to say what you need to say. And don't ever, you know, second guess yourself. That was the biggest thing, one of the bigger things that she said to me, like, don't ever second guess yourself. So when I was sitting here, it's like I felt her saying that, like, don't second guess what you're gonna say, like, just say it. Because we had different conversations around different things, and she's like, just say it. She's like, always just say what you need to say and what you feel. And that was around a lot of different things like that we talked about. But I just want to say, you know, Chimigwech, you know, from the bottom of my heart to everybody that has been a part of this. And like I said, you know, when Jody reached out to me and said, you know, I have some good news, I told Jody, like I knew it was going to be some really, really awesome news, but I didn't expect her to say that somebody gifted, you know, their land to this, you know, for this living monument to start happening. Like, they actually just gifted that land. And that's a really powerful thing, because, you know, our people pray, you know, we do ceremonies, and there's different things that we have asked for. And especially knowing that it's, you know, somebody, like, I don't know entirely who this person is, but
we'll introduce you when you come to visit, but I don't want to ever cut you off, because you said exactly what I needed to hear, and I'm sure what everyone needed to hear. Your words are beautiful. Yeah. You are beautiful, and I don't want you to leave until you get to meet the team, the beautiful team here, Laura and Joel from Minican, that they're going to speak right now. I don't know if maybe you muted yourself. Let me just double check. Oh no, there we go.
I think I froze. Can you see me? Because my screen's froze. But as long as you can see me. Oh, you can?
I can see you, and you can see them. We're gonna have them say hello to us and tell us what they're doing today and who they are. And this is so exciting.
Okay. Ani, quick everybody. We're here up near the kind of the Red Hills area, which was a very sacred site for our communities, near Crawford Lake Sanctuary too. And we will be at the Living Monument today. We have some of the plants that we're praying with and smudging now that will be going into the garden. And this is my partner, Lara.
Hi, everyone. We're from Minican Innovation and Design, and we're so honored to help with the plants for this project.
So I'm Joel White Duck Ringet, and we're here on behalf of our role with Minican Innovations and Design. And Minican means the seed in Anishinaabe Moan. And it's so important for us to be a part of this and to be invited in by the grandmothers and to be able to collaborate on the Living Monument, so that it's all the things that Rochelle said that really, really resonate with us. I mean, I just feel so moved by so many of the things she talked about. For all of our women that we have lost, that have gone before us for so many different reasons, you know, based on the history of the violence towards our people through the residential school legacy and just colonization and all the institutionalization of our people that started with the residential legacy. My grandmother, my great-grandmother, and my mother, who now goes before me in the spirit world, we do these things in honor of them. And it is the burden and the love of our mothers and our grandmothers, our sisters, our aunties, that we all have a hope and have that resilience that Rochelle was sharing. These plants all represent her. And in fact, she is our grandmother. That's her. We pray to her and we drink her medicine, we smudge with her medicine, and we need her. And we know that as two-leggeds, we aren't anything without the plants. And so the Living Monument brings a place of resilience, a place of hope. And we're so thankful to be a part of this, to see what Grandmother's Voices and Grandma Renee's design and the collaboration with us, Laura and I, and the work that we're doing all of these indigenous plants to the garden and bring the people there to engage in that place of solace, that place of grief, that place of healing, that place of love. And we say, Dijagan, we love you. We love the plant ancestors and we love our community. And our hearts are full of that grief, but also full of the love and the hope that we're going to share with you in the healing center that grandmother was bringing through the gardens at County Heritage Park or Country Heritage Park. And we look so forward to the beginning of the implementation of the garden and all the growing we'll be doing there with the medicines and the healing that represents all our Indigenous women in our community to come together and pray for those changes, come together to protect one another in all times. What we all said, every generation is changing and growing stronger, and this is for our youth. This is the opportunity to bring our youth in, to bring our elders in, and to change love and wisdom. We know we have a community that with each other. So, Miigwech, Jody, Miigwech, all for us here today, and to share and collaborate our community. Miigwech, we have a little song we want to sing to you. Song.
Yeah, we're
You're
cut
cutting off a bit. You're cutting out. Oh, sorry. Oh, there we go. Are you back?
Okay.
We're back.
Okay.
Okay. So we're gonna the Miigwech song.
Yeah.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
Big voice.
Okay.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Miigwech, get your mind. Miigwech, show me. Miigwech,
Are you all still with me?
It's interesting how the spirits work when we're doing wonderful things. Always.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I could feel them. I think they might try to come back in the room. I see that Nokomis Cindy Lee joined us, and also Faith. I'm going to add them into the room. Oh, we'll just let, here they have come back. We'll just acknowledge them. Hi, we lost you guys, but thank you so much for showing up and sharing that song. For those of us that know the song, I think we stayed with it, and we just appreciate so much of everything that you're doing with the gardens and all of the magic that you created with grandmother Renee and her designs. I shared a little bit while you were talking, and I mean, everyone will be able to see how the beautiful space unfolds. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But I'd like to thank you, Lara and Joel. I'm gonna. Oh, there you go. You got a little. I think you have a little bit. Say something.
Oh,
No.
there you go. Everybody. See you, Bama P. Bama P.
Bama P. I'd like to welcome our sisters back to the room. Sisters, aunties, I don't want to call you grandmothers. I just am feeling so happy and full right now. Rochelle, I'm not sure if you're going to stay on. Just let me know. You can even just, when you're ready to. Oh.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I do have to get going, but I didn't want to go without, saying Chimigwachigan and, Bamapi, and thank you very much for giving me this time. And I'm very, very happy to see where this is gonna go, and then also actually go to the land. And I'm glad I got to see who, gifted us this land to do the living monument. So you guys have a great rest of your day, and I know I'll see you guys again soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Rochelle. Those were actually our brother and sister that they are doing the planting and organizing.
Okay.
MiniCan Innovations and Design. Country Heritage Park is the nonprofit that offered us the land and so much
Okay.
more. So, but we'll definitely invite you there when we start planting, because that's the goal, is to bring our community together and plant together. So
Right.
we'll share that information with you. Love you. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for your words.
Yes.
You're
Talk again.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Bomapi.
Take care, everybody. Bomapi.
And so, everyone's back in the room. We have some more amazing women with us. And Nokomis, I guess you came back in the room probably because you heard them step out, and I could feel you singing in the background. And our friend Faith Hill, we wanted to introduce you as well. And and with me and my whole design of the program, okay, I don't ever usually design anything, but I was forced to by Bev and Carol, who like agendas. No, I'm just kidding. But we did. She said, "What do you mean you don't have an agenda?" And I'm like, "Well, we don't do agendas. We just show up and go with the flow." And but it's really important, because I believe that we want to make sure that we share what we need to share and what people need to hear today. And we have a lot of beautiful messages in the comments. But what I'd like to just kind of go back to the conversation that we were having, Faith. I know that you're probably listening, and the work, working in your office and listening. Carol and Bev, I'd just like to acknowledge them in the way that I do when I think of them in the community. And they really truly are pioneers like Sherry, in our community in Halton, that have been doing so much to bring awareness, to hold people accountable in governments and organizations and in community, and just really creating opportunities like this. And so Bev and Carol, I really wanted you to meet Faith, because she's an expert and a pioneer in her own right in her communities. And even in Halton, in this region, we just figured out that we're all in the same region together. But so Bev, you had mentioned, you're so passionate about everything. And when we talk, you had mentioned childcare. And, after, I think I'd really love for you to meet Faith. She has so much to offer about the work that she does with childcare. But you had mentioned something, and you can both maybe talk about the mess, I guess, what the government announced, what you worked so hard for the last 50 years in childcare. And I better let you off mute so that we can hear you.
Yes, I was sharing with you that it had been 50 years that we've been working for. We're talking about a national childcare program, a national program that is affordable to everyone, where children would be cared for, where there would be standards of care always, and something that would be affordable. Affordable so that if women came, say you're a refugee coming to Canada, you need to do things, there would be something there for you, somewhere you could take your children. Women were in the workforce, but it's not being acknowledged through other countries, except for the United States and Canada. Other countries have national child care programs. It's an attitude that women aren't in the workforce. It's an attitude that it would cost too much. And finally, through the pandemic and what we've learned about who does the work, appreciating women's work all of a sudden. And our government has put $30 billion towards getting a national child care program that within 5 years, it will cost $10 a day for childcare rather than hundreds of dollars a day. But it's the women of Canada that have worked for this, and we're so glad. But we have the first female finance minister in Canada, and we have a cabinet that is half women now. And we were always told by Doris Anderson, we will only have equality when we have a national childcare program and electoral reform, and somebody has finally heard us. And I'm just grateful for the stress that it will take off families today, and that our children will be safe. So it was just, I'm really grateful. Is that what you wanted?
Yes, Faith. I was just telling Faith she had to unmute. Yes, Bev, you're awesome.
Yes, I'm unmuted. And Bev, what a wonderful introduction to what we're talking about today, because I often think about our women as Indigenous women and times like today, where we're honoring our women missing and murdered, and Indigenous women, girls and boys, and Two-Spirited. And my thinking around this is that really for us, it's a different conversation for Indigenous peoples. This is our way of gaining our language and cultures. You know, I find when people immigrate into Canada and come to the country, they have their language, they have their cultures, they have an understanding. A lot of them have choice about coming here today. For Indigenous people, this is our lands. It's sovereignty. This is our connection. And truly today, we're only seeing 2% of Indigenous populations that once covered Turtle Island and lived within here. So I think it's important for us to understand the conversation and sovereignty that our children, our women deserve and have a right to have their languages and cultures. And where that begins is in our schools. So when we talk about early learning and care for our children, we really talk about it in the framework of it's where we need to be, right? As grandmothers, as individuals working and supporting our women today. No different than Women's Lodge, no different than the way we used to live. Children were born to not a mother or a father. Respectfully, they were wonderful. That we know about parents, but they're really born to a nation and to a community. And when we think about this in our role, even in this room as women, why I think the work that Grandmother's Voice is doing in the Halton region and building this space where women and families can come and be a part and connected to their land, that this is real true, where true learning is born. So, you know, for us, when I think about how even the national initiatives around, childcare and affordability and accessibility, those are important. Those are important for women when we talk about working and going to school and being part of society today. But I also think there's a deeper conversation for us because it really is what we're asking for today is reconciliation and justice. And when we look at childcare and we look at what's in our community and what is available for our women and children, recently I can see change. I can see it, but it's very recent. And we're talking about 500 years of plus of colonization that it's taken us to get to this place to have this voice. And again, there's trust that has to be built. There's a lot of other understanding. So, for us, when I think about us and I talk about Indigenous women, that our real thought about education is about our language and culture and connecting. So I think the work here that grandmothers are doing and bringing in, even hopefully educating early childhood educators to understand our way and who we are and our connection to land and land-based learning. And I know that's out there today. People talk about it, learning outside with children and being outside in the outdoors. That was always our way. And what I do know is that research today, no matter what we do, elders have told me this, will lead back to Indigenous ways of knowing and being, because those ways of knowing and being are being human, being good, having and living the good life. So that's when we talk about Good Life School. MMIWG2S is the work that we do in our framework. The Good Life School really means that. It's a life. It's lifelong learning, and not just for babies and children and parents, but for everyone. We're learning how to be grandmothers. You know, we were born into this. Our children have been born and had children, but we're learning to be grandmothers. We're learning to be mothers. Just because you have a child doesn't mean you have everything that that child needs. So in that process of learning, women share, women come together. And these communities of practice that grandmothers are talking about is really about that, is really about, you know, educating. And how do we come together in the future with educators, and I mean early childhood educators in the system, to really talk about land-based learning in Turtle Island, because it's different from all other parts of the world. And again, Indigenous peoples know this from all over the world, that we are different, yet we are one, we are human, and our spirits are connected. So I think it's important to have respect, but also to understand where Indigenous peoples come from. So Jody, I hope that helps, but you know, I'm kind of excited about this topic because often, you know, we connect our women and our celebrations to, yes, child rearing and doing all of the work that we do, but we also know that we are the keepers of civilization, born whole and complete. And that's it, born whole and complete. And all of us women in here who believe that, when we take up our part of society and the work that we do and know our gifts and know what we have to bring to this sacred fire, that we build healthy community. And I believe women's voices and women's work do all of that. So that's where I come from today, is understanding my place. And it's a very small place, very small footprint. But I know as those footprints walk across Turtle Island, that it becomes larger and the picture becomes larger. So I'm excited today to join in this hoop that you're creating, Jody, and grandmothers, and to lend voices, you know, to the beautiful work that's going to begin. But more importantly, our actions and what you're doing out there in the Halton region and building the school and having the land. We know that spirit is driving this. We know that. There's not even a question. I'll give you one example. I was in an education conference years ago with school boards. It was a regional in this region. And I was asked to speak about cultures and language of Indigenous peoples in the early years. And a person, an innocent person, they didn't understand. They just asked the question, why do we need Indigenous language and cultures in our schools? Nobody's speaking them. You know, we're French and we're English. And I didn't expect to get that question. So I had to think for a moment. And out of spirit, it came this: can you afford us not to? Can you afford us not to? Because within our language and within our cultures, what are the prophecies? And what I do know, that big earth changes are coming. Could you afford Indigenous people not to understand who we are and our purpose in Turtle Island today? Could you afford us not to pray for the waters that we can no longer drink, right? Can you afford us not to pray for the plants and the animals and the sky world and the moon and the sun? It's in our ceremonies. It's in our language. It's in our ways of being and knowing. That was my answer. And that's still my answer today. Can we afford not to have our language and cultures? I say no. So we're busy. We're busy.
We're busy and we like it. Oops. See? Sherry, would you like to pop in and save me here?
And and it's so true. Like every generation is busy, busy advocating for the families and their language and their community. And because we had such a huge gap for such a long time, we never came along for that either. But now there's reclamation, there's resurgence, and I think Faith had said it as well, that this work has to be done, but we should be doing the work in the background of the resurgence work, of reclaiming the culture, reclaiming the language, reclaiming how we did things, and show people that we have the answers. We know what to do. We don't need somebody else telling us what we can and cannot do. And so it is just, you know, we've been told that so many times. Why are we asking permission? We don't need permission. We just need to do it and get it done. And when we start getting it done, then people start kind of like, whoa, 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 slow down. Have you asked permission to do that? We don't need permission because we're starting our own revolution. You know, and I think those revolutions continue in every single generation. My sister was a revolutionary and started some of the friendship centers out in Saskatchewan in the 80s, in the 70s and 80s, you know, and then, you know, my generation, you know, to continue the work in the absence of certain things that are happening in our own community, which I'm so honored to be a part of, and also to be amongst such wonderful women who are the change makers in our community. Bev and Carol, Grandma Renee, Faith and Nicomis, Cindy Lee, and Jody, and many, many more. You know, it's just, we're only limited to so many people that we can have on this platform, but like so many more people that are here. And it really is the work of resurgence, of reclaiming and having that space. And we wouldn't be able to have that space had it not been for the generous or that thought process from the Country Heritage Park, that we needed to have space in place, that there was something missing. Why is there such a huge gap in our own agricultural story? Well, because we were prohibited from participating in the economy. We were prohibited from ever growing any food. And if we did, we couldn't sell it to our neighbors. And so it would go fallow in our fields. And then to learn that from people and to teach people that there was, you know, a pass system. We couldn't go anywhere. We were fined if we went anywhere, right? And so it's interesting during this pandemic that, you know, we are prohibited from going to certain places, and people are just like, what? We can't go here? But, you know, we know that was my first instinct when we had a lockdown. It's kind of like, this reminds me of the pass system that our grandparents went through, right? And, you know, and so it's just, you know, it's lots of learning. You know, and the truth is hard, right? But reconciliation is harder. But we have an opportunity with Country Heritage Park to bring reconciliation and action with the Country Heritage Park by being gifted the land, by having the space and welcoming community, because the community, this is their space as well, and more so their space than our space, because we're only the conduit for the community, and we're so grateful and honored.
Thank you, Sherry. And I always have so much I feel like I want to say, but I can tell you all it in my own personal time, because from the words that are being shared on the platform, everyone can hear and see the spirit and the love that's in this room. And so they're so very grateful. I do have a lot to say, but I also can't. As much as I am multitasking all the time when I'm in this space. I love to be present for all of you, and so and also so far. Oh, am I on mute? Oh no, go ahead.
I just want to just say that we have Aloha from Hawaii watching us.
Oh, right. So this
Aloha.
is what's so wonderful. So many people from all over we've reached, and this doesn't, you know, what's going on with our women here is going on in everywhere around the world. So just very grateful that we had this space today. I wanted to just share a little bit about what we'll be doing at Country Heritage Park, where we're going, and I really would like Carol to speak a bit about GASP, because I know that there's a reason why we have all of these beautiful synergies happening in this community, and why we have to share. And so I think everyone will hear and figure it out themselves once we share what we're doing. And then we'll just have a few words from Grandmother Renee, and we'll finish with the song. But I'd like to just introduce that Faith came along last year to support Grandmother's Voice when we really knew we are being guided by the grandmothers and in spirit to use the opportunity of this platform to reach as far as Hawaii and as far as Ireland. And so the grandmothers kept saying, you know, keep doing it. Let's just keep doing it. The people are showing up, and this is our time. And so Faith was gracious enough, through a friend of a friend from my hometown in Windsor, and like it's just beautiful. The hoop, like you said to me this morning, we talk almost every day. I talk almost every day with these women, and it's really empowering, I guess, and powerful is what it is. And so at Country Heritage Park, when Sherry and I went, we received the phone call from Brenna. Brenna got us in touch with Jamie. Jamie said, "Hey, he doesn't ever want me to talk about him, but I'm going to. He just is that guy that's like, yeah, don't bring me in the limelight. I'm just doing this because it just felt right." And he doesn't even know if it felt right. So he says, men in connection to themselves. This just needs to get done. And so we went out there and we saw this land, and it just spoke to us. And the ancestors, like Grandmother Renee said, when we went there to do ceremony, it was like they were coming out of the ground or coming from everywhere. We could feel that this was the place. And there's so much history and reasoning for this. And Sherry and I just looked at each other and said, oh my gosh, it wasn't even, how are we going to do this? It was the feeling that we knew we were supported enough by our ancestors and the grandmothers, and the work that was already, I think, prepared for us, or what was the foundation that was here because of Beth and Carol in our community. This was meant to be, for us to do this together. And so you will be so happy, Carol, to see the innovation there. He's, what they've created there, the space there, the opportunities for Faith, education. If we could tell you all of our plans right now, we could, but just know that there's an exit being opened this day on Tremaine and the 401. And we know that was for us to gather in this space. And so we'll invite all of you to come to our platform, grandmothersvoice.com, and visit us and reach out, and we'll do the best that we can, because you're really looking at the people right here that are doing all of this. We're no experts. We're just people that continue to just do this work. So if you have any gifts to offer to help make this easier on us, hey, come on, bring it in. This is for everyone. That's what the grandmothers always say. And so, Carol, just kind of popping back to when we first met you, and you and Bev and the ladies, the grandmas, we did ceremony and we gathered together, and and then all of a sudden you surfaced with another women's group. So if you can just tell us, and I know there's not a lot of time, but you have a website and you have a lot of things happening. Maybe you could just share briefly about what you're doing now, and then keep in mind you're definitely going to have to come and be in our space. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Well, how we started was just a group of white women, privileged white women, and we said, what's happened when we have discovered what was happening in the United States? Who was responsible? And when we looked at who voted for Donald Trump, I know it's not political here, but it was political for GASP, we discovered that it was educated white women voting for what you see has happened over the 4 years. And we needed to dive deep, get educated, and learn about our privilege, our white supremacy. And we did. We spent 2 years looking quite deeply into these things and taking responsibility. And of course, when we had to look in our own country, we had to really look at how we privileged women needed to not only atone for our privilege and recognize it, but what can we do about it? It was not something that just, oh yeah, okay, so we were bad. No. We needed to act. And the other thing that was happening exactly the same time was the climate crisis. And when we said, what is the most worrisome thing in this room, 35 women, I think, all said, we fear for the future of our grandchildren because we're so disconnected. And who is connected are the Indigenous people who knows about the land, who've been there from the beginning, who are protecting the land today from government and big business and so on. So we formed a group called Grandmothers Act to Save the Planet, GASP for short. And we've been working very, very hard. We've been following the money. We've been following the banks. We've been looking at insurance companies and what they are doing. But throughout all this, we keep coming back to Indigenous people. And something very wonderful happened yesterday, because I'm not going to tell you all the things that GASP is doing. We're doing loads of things. But we were on a Zoom with 57 students yesterday who were looking at activism and climate. And the interesting thing, when they introduced GASP, there were the co-chairs that were on there, GASP, they put underneath, the interesting fact, these women are trying to emulate Indigenous grandmothers, their sisters. And the reason? Because they believe in thinking 7 generations, that when we plan for 7 generations. So that's an incredible tribute to the Indigenous women that I have met over the last while, that it's so integrated, it's becoming more and more integrated with young people and with us white privileged women. Anyway, I think that's as best I can do.
I appreciate it. I think we all do. But we are at 102. Grandmother Renee, would you like to share a few words? Thank you all so much for coming. Bev, you're beautiful. We love everything that you ladies are doing. Faith, I feel you from here. Cindy Lee, love you.
Yawa, miigwech, and thank you to everyone that has shared their gifts today. This plan that this healing garden is meant for all that have lost, not only Indigenous people, but every person has been in a loss. And that's, if we take care of the loss, then healing, as we say, can happen to many. And so this is why the concept of the longhouse, because that's how we had known, was the longhouse was to extend from the east to the west coast. And you know, at both at the east and the west, there is a longhouse. And so this is how the garden is designed, so that everyone that comes through will be reconnected. When they come through there will be the cedars. These are the medicine trees. So when they walk by the medicine, it's almost like the ancestors wiping them off of all their grief. And as they walk down that path, they will feel the power of all those medicines that our ancestors had used to help in the grieving. And so there will be benches along the side so that they can sit and be immersed in all that medicine to help their minds, to clear their heads, to clear their hearts, to clear their spirit, so that war within themselves will stop. This is what has been, and you know, I like us at this time also pray for those predators, because you see, their spirit has been lost. Their spirit has been lost. And so every time I'm in ceremony, while we were talking, I was praying for all those that have been the predators, that have been doing it because they're at war within themselves. This is what it's all about. Not only for the victims, but also for those that are causing so much grief to all the people. We have to pray for everybody. We have to include everybody when we're doing this, because we're going to raise that energy up. We're going to raise that healing up, that energy. And that's what, with the help of our mother, she's getting us all together so that we can bring forth and take care of all those children that have been neglected because they haven't been nurtured in a good way. Their minds haven't been nurtured in a good way. So we're also going to take care of them. Every time we go in the garden, we're going to ask to pray for those ones that have lost their understanding of life, so that there can be, as they say, that love come through and nurturing, and knowing what the Creator has given us is that essence of healing every moment of our life, every breath we take. And so that's just why when you're in that garden, every breath that you take is going to bring that back, that medicine, that healing power of the unconditional love that our mother, the earth, has given us. And so this is why this concept is for all, is for all. So I'm so grateful that I'm so emotional because my grandparents dreamt of this. Our great grandparents dreamt of this, and this time that we brought back that fire of love, that fire of love. I have a candle going, and that is part of the ceremony, because that love is that ceremony, that love that is to touch and warm everyone's heart, so that there's no more bullying, there's no more violence, that there's enough of this destruction of themselves. And so this is what this garden is all about. But there's more into it, but this is what condense. I've been taught to speak condense. So the most important thing is to give the message that it is for all of us, so that we can rebuild our fires and share it. Aho, Yawa, Miigwech.
Miss Cindy Lee, Faith wanted to share us a poem before you sing, if that's okay, if you're okay with that.
This poem was written by one of our mothers, so I'm going to try and do justice to get through it without tearing up. It starts with, this was done by Fatima Taylor, and she's from the Chatham region. Can you hear me? Please don't forget me. The earth is cold, the ground is quiet. I search for the sun, but still I can't find it. In the dead of the silence, thump, thump goes my heart, as I fear and pain ravage and engulf every part. The questions continue to race through my mind as I lay beat and broken, my limbs in a bind. Can you hear me? Please don't forget me. I think I hear footsteps. Is help here at last? But thoughts of salvation, like sometimes, slowly pass. I feel the warmth of my blood as it runs down my face. In the distance, I see animals nervously pace. The day's getting colder, the lights nearly gone. I hear the wind whip the trees as it sings its cold song. Can you hear me? Please don't forget me. My energy has faded, and Mother Earth has taken me in the warmth and the love of my family and friends. With my last breath, the spirit rises and looks down below to a body and flesh I once used to know. Beautiful, resilient, strong, proud, and smart. A mother, a daughter, Indigenous at heart. A curtain of red dresses line the way to peace, and family and friends gather to honor the feast. And in my innermost spirit, I say to myself, I am seen, I am heard, and above all else, thank you for never forgetting.
Before I sing this last song, I did want to just speak to the first song that was sung. It's the Woman's Warrior song. And that song comes from a time from 1969 to 2011 that the Highway of Tears, Highway 16 in British Columbia, between Prince George and Prince Rupert, and the many of our sisters that have gone missing. And so that song comes from that, and it represents that warrior song at that time, and is still sung today. This song here is I Dream of the Eagle. I hear the eagle, I see the eagle, and I journey with the eagle. This song comes from the Sweetwater Singers. J'aime l'ado qui wana magasin. J'aime l'ado qui wana magasin. Make which j'aime J'aime le don qui nous doit m'aider. J'aime le don qui nous doit m'aider. Mais j'aime le don Galéa m'aider. J'aime le don qui nous doit m'aider. J'aime le don qui va m'aider. J'aime le nom qui va m'aider. Mais j'aime le nom Galéa m'aider. J'aime le nom qui va m'aider. J'aime le nom, oui, j'aime m'aider. J'aime le nom, oui, j'aime m'aider. Mais j'aime le nom Galéa m'aider. J'aime le nom, oui, j'aime m'aider. Too much.